The next expansion for Hardline 4 is going to be called the Graveyard of Empires. Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq. And this tip diary focuses on the historical path for the British Raj. 4th of March. Mark that date on your calendar. The next expansion is coming. So 1936, the Indian subcontinent is still under the control of the British Empire. Be aware it says subcontinent, not just specifically India, because remember, it consists of Bangladesh, Pakistan, Burma, and even a bit of Yemen as well. That's right, it has a piece of the Middle East under the British East Indian Company, or in this case, the British Raj. World War I, the British Raj fought as the British Empire against the Central Powers, and afterwards independence was quickly picking up steam, no longer content and ruled from London. Many leaders were met aloof by the part of indignation, while the population at large remained impoverished. At the outbreak of World War II, India was involved, and the biggest volunteer army of a history of 2.5 million soldiers, specifically a volunteer army as well, not actually drafted. Wow. However, this was not without controversy. Local leaders weren't consulted or even imprisoned. Some went as far as siding with the Axis. So it looks like the possibilities of joining different factions now and switching ideologies is easier due to the fact of the dissent built within the Indian, the British Raj. I wonder if these ideologies switch faster if you are in a case of war or if you are taking more casualties. That'd be a cool mechanic, that, wouldn't it, to actually encourage you to take losses to therefore speed up the independence movement, which is technically how it works anyway, because that's how you gain autonomy. Will the autonomy system will be abandoned and forgot about for this expansion, or will it be more integrated than before? Let's find out. As well, the independence happened in 1947, where India and Pakistan also became independent as well. All right. Princely states. Screenshot. Here we go. So you can see the princely states. We have this one here. We also have one here. Kashmir. Two here. One here. One here. You get the idea, right? So these states had some level of autonomy. They weren't fully centralized into the Indian government and therefore represented as non-core territory. Paradox need to take advantage of this mechanic more often, because I personally think some parts of the Soviet Union shouldn't be core states at the very beginning of the game. They should have some level of autonomy with some option to core it later on. That would be kind of cool. As you can see, these are the states that can be declared independent. Also, the Raj also has a den, as they historically before it was handed back to Britain, which is a bit of a tip of, I believe is Yemen. You have two garrison choices for these princely states. It is independent rule, which basically nullifies the garrisons, but gains a healthy amount of compliance, but you lose some resources. Or you subjugate them, which gives you all the resources and all the factories, but the downside is you don't get the compliance. The meta of this is to try and build the compliance as high as it can go, and then if you need a big influx of either resources or factories, you switch out to this one and you take advantage of the compliance to pair the two bonuses together. So potentially if you had 50 compliance and then you stacked it with the resources and factories, you would actually gain more than what you've originally gained. And that's kind of how autonomy currently works, and compliance, the best way of taking advantage of it. Burma wasn't officially transferred to the British Raj until 1937, so at the start of the game, the Burma will be independent. But in 1937, it actually became integrated into India. It's an interesting country because it's full of jungles. It hasn't got a lot of infrastructure, but there was a lot of fighting between the Japanese on the Siam border. Okay, so this is the independent branch, and it shows immediately from the get-go, you have the ability to go for self-rule. This gains you autonomy, but increases resistance. So I think there's a pattern forming here. The more that you want to gain independence, the more resistance you're going to get, basically. And that's going to be all the non-core states. So it looks like there's many a time opportunities to speed up that progress. Export tea to the United Kingdom. Nice. Oh, so this is an example of you gain something from Britain, you lose autonomy, but you gain additional economic bonuses. There's an example here, two factories, but you lose autonomy. Another option here. You gain resistance, gain a civilian factory. Well, actually four civilian factories for 70 days. That's pretty good. And here we go, agricultural cooperatives. You gain one infrastructure for every state that has at least 4 civilian factories. I kind of like these mechanics because you kind of like, you can feel like you gain a lot for them just based on following the requirements. Gains you 1 civilian factory for every 2 infrastructure gained by this focus. Wow. Oh, wow. This is a big multiplier effect. Civilian factories to build civilian factories. It does encourage as well to spread out your civilian factories too, which is a little bit different. I like that a lot. Oh, that's really cool. Anything that can kind of create a certain playstyle, I think is a really cool mechanic, other than just like, here's your 1 civilian factory, enjoy it. I'm like, Really feel like I was rewarded there, you know? The two nation, India, united. So, do you want to create, historically, the Pakistan, which is in the left path here, or do you want to go for a power sharing agreement? Now, this totally upsets the princely states, losing all your compliance, and also reducing resistance too. United Bengal or Eastern Pakistan. So you've got options to release Pakistan if you need to. Usually the strategy would not to really care so much about Pakistan and Bangladesh and just building all the land that isn't that territory and kind of just ignore it. It'd be kind of cool if Paradox disincentivized that behavior and you kind of needed to build inside of them. But the truth behind it is, like, building inside of a country doesn't really decrease unrest or increase compliance, so there's not much point ever doing it. The two-nation theory, which is the historical outcome, leads to the partition of the Raj into India and Pakistan. Some princely states will rise up and become independent, as you see. When they become independent, I guess you've got the ability to annex them, I guess. Looks like you've got the ability to pressure these said states, presuming reducing the chance of them declaring independent. Oh, wow. God, is Paradox actually hearing me? So to actually create homogeny and combine all of the nations within the Raj, you have to build inside of Pakistan. Oh my goodness, is someone tapped into this call right now listening to me? What's the bonuses? You got MXP, which is pretty good at the start of the game. However, it's very far down the focus tree, so it's not very beneficial. Resource gain is kind of good. Production efficiency retention is decent. Construction, 15%. That's a big, juicy bonus. Construction doesn't really benefit you that much in late game. It's more of a starting game thing. Research, 12%. That's pretty good too. After independence, you've got a bunch of focuses as well. So options to unify India, for instance, taking out Goa, for instance, defend Burma. This is cool because this just shows that it's not forgotten about. Usually when you declare independence, it's kind of the end of the focus tree. But you get to steer your nation in a said direction. Interesting, all the focuses are selectable. None of them are like mutual choices as well. It reminds me of the bottom focus tree for China, this. You know, you've completed the war against Japan and now you're piecing together your country and building up from the ground up. This is interesting. Economic Unbound. For 265 days, you gain 25% construction and production efficiency plus 10%. I love this. This is so good. Once again, this is what you need. You need these really good, amazing bonuses, but they're restricted over time. And that makes them all so interesting. Where, for instance, if there wasn't restricted for time, it just feel like they're too OP. But because they're locked behind a time restraint, you have to be more thoughtful about when you select this focus. I like that. This is a shared branch of army. Shared with who? So this path on the left is to go with the UK doctrines, where the right side is Indianize the army. Presume after declaring independence, you can't do it on the left path. I wonder why it says by shared branches. Is this similar branches that you'll get a part of the other nations in this expansion? Next, we have the sub-branch for industry. Allows you to complete faster construction of supply hubs, railways, and infrastructure. Civilian cargo or army cargo. Interesting. Options to gain resources are going to be very useful as India. For instance, like Tata Steel, for instance, here. And then you've also got the oil, Assam oil. Gun and shell factory, gaining a military factory, plus increases the size of a Mayo. Nice! Mayos have not been forgotten about. India's forces have got bonuses for mountainous terrain, both for tanks and artillery and infantry. Nice to see. Agrarian society has been changed. Now, in the past, it just affects mobilization speed and recruitable factor, but now it also increases the cost for conscription. So what that tells me is you're not going to be able to set on volunteer only for the rest of the game. The way it worked in the past is you had to declare independence to go for extensive conscription or gain more autonomy to up the subscription. It was basically railroad and fixed behind a requirement of autonomy. Now you can do it, but it just costs you way more political power. So this would be, let's say, 150 political power is the base amount. So it's 100%, so 300. So we're talking like 500 political power for this modifier. And it can be decreased over time by going for certain focuses. For every 12 months, this will reduce by this set amount. So it looks like this number stays very big to begin with. And then over time, you get to erode away with it by going through these focuses. You have more than 55% war support. You have the ability to change your agrarian society. Again, it seems to be tied behind military, which is kind of interesting. I presume agrarian society. Oh, I suppose that makes sense. You're pulling them from the farms and then putting them in the military, I'm presuming. Most industrialization schemes, 350 political power. Wow. Against a large cost. So it looks like there's many multiple ways of fixing this agrarian society. The brown spot disease outbreak in East Bengal. A fungal disease, losing 1 political power. What if this is going to work like EU4, where this spreads if you don't deal with it? Oh, and I see this links into the Bengal famine, so it has an actual state modifier effect as well. Interesting, this one. So resistance goes up massively. Compliance drops off like off a cliff. You lose loads of speeds, and you also lose core territory defending. If you are in that one instance where you're fighting in this area and you lose this 25%, I suppose that's pretty big, but otherwise you're just not going to care. I wonder if there's an instances where you can just ignore the famine and just continue on. I suppose if it spreads, then that obviously would be a problem. It looks like a state modifier, but if it gets bigger outside of that, that could be a problem. Oh, and these are the contingents you can put in to reduce that. So in this case, you can go for quinine, which makes your chance of getting sick 100%. Oh, that's kind of cool, actually, because getting sick from jungles is super common, but it does eat into your civilian factories. I presume the idea behind that is it reduces the odds of the famine kicking in. Oh, and here you go. So it says the expected famine will last 13 to 25 months, and these are the factors you were taking into account to prevent that from happening by pressing the buttons. Okay, of all the parts of this focus tree, this is probably the least interesting. Having to press buttons to prevent a certain thing from happening. I always wonder sometimes in Hawaii, is it better just to let this happen and then just ignore it? I don't know, we'll see. Well, that's the historical path for the British Raj. How far do you feel about it? I think I'm pretty excited, actually. Some of those focuses have got really interesting, cool bonuses. And also the fact that it's the British Raj, which is a nation that potentially can become a major power, make a big influential difference to this area of the world, contest China, contest Japan, and potentially plow into the Middle East or Southeast Asia. I'll be honest with you, British Raj really does excite me for this expansion. Let me know in the comments below. But number between 1 and 10 in the comments. Let me know how excited you are. Are you excited? Let me know. Also, don't forget, you can get this expansion as well as all previous expansions under the expansion pack. The link is below. Just read it very carefully and you get a big discount off this expansion plus the rest of the ones for this year. Tally ho. See you soon.